A nurse is the first person you see when you come into this great world, and 9 times out of 10, we're the person beside you when you leave.
Everyone remembers the teacher who saw something in them, who supported them in their aspirations. They are invaluable, and we should cherish them.
At breaking point, 2 professions said enough was enough.
If they don't stand up now and be counted, then it goes from a crisis situation into a catastrophe.
What do we want? Fair pay! When do we want it? Now!
Nurses and teachers decided to go on strike.
They don't want to do this. That's the reason it has taken 106 years to get to this place.
When your back's against the wall, all you've got left is fighting.
All year, we've had unrivaled access to their unions, led and dominated by women.
I will leave no stone unturned.
When you've got a union that's over 500,000 members strong, then that's a force to be reckoned with.
Our cameras witnessed the highs
Every nurse would be a millionaire as far as I'd be concerned.
and the lows.
I've had messages posted to my house with threats sent.
As we followed their campaign for 1 million pay rises during a cost of living crisis.
I have been given the privilege of speaking out for justice at work.
We now know how much it took for the government to end the disputes, but what was the cost for Pat and Mary?
Picket lines will appear at hospitals today as tens of thousands of nurses go on strike for the first time.
Members of the Royal College of Nursing are beginning their first national strike in the union's 100-year history this morning.
The government was unmoved, insisting the pay rise being demanded is unaffordable. The nurses have warned that their industrial action will continue.
It's a bitterly cold mid-January morning, but there's a carnival spirit at this protest in South London. Bringing the party to the picket line is the Royal College of Nursing's boss, Pat Cullen.
You probably have seen my old face on the television.
I grew up in a little village called Carrickmore, which is in County Tyrone, and I lived on a farm. My father died when I was very young, when I was 13. My mother died then, unfortunately, when I was 18. And I missed her immensely. She was the real stalwart, the backbone of our family. I've got 5 sisters, 1 sister with a learning disability, and the others are all nurses. From a very young age, I always knew that, I suppose, nursing was in my blood, and that's what I wanted to do. When I took my first step into mental health nursing, I entered a world where I seen the most vulnerable people at their most vulnerable. That created a passion in me for speaking up for people, making sure that the right thing is done for those that don't have a voice in society.
These nurses are asking the government for a 5% pay rise over the rate of inflation, which has soared in the last year. So that's an effective pay rise of about 15%.
What do we want? Fair pay! When do we want it? Now!
It's a bold starting point in negotiations, and the government is yet to respond.
For me, as a nurse for 42 years, there's a significant difference by saying we're under pressure, which nurses can deal with every day of the week and every night of the week, to saying that we're in an absolute crisis. We are in a crisis. They thought it couldn't get any worse than it was at the pandemic, and they would say this is indescribable in terms of how bad it has got for them.
Nurses aren't the only ones wanting a pay rise. So are teachers. The government is now facing 2 women at the helm of 2 unions, together representing 1 million, mostly female, key workers.
teachers in England and Wales are set to go on strike in February and March. That, of course, has set the teachers on collision course with the government.
Going on strike is not the way to conduct pay negotiations in a modern economy.
As many as 500,000 workers are on strike today, and what unions say is the biggest day of strike action in a decade.
I am clear that our children's education is precious and they deserve to be in school today being taught.
It is your job to try and do everything you can to resolve the dispute before you have to take industrial action. So industrial action is a last resort. Unfortunately, it's one that we've had to take with this government.
Dr. Mary Bousted is leading the teachers' fight for better pay. Along with Kevin Courtney, she's the Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union.
Yeah, go and get warm.
They're demanding a pay increase that matches inflation. That's a rise of over 10%.
We have to find a way of addressing the workforce crisis in our schools. We have to find a way of a long-term correction for teachers' pay, which has declined so drastically over the last 12 years, to a much worse extent than nearly any other profession. It is no way to treat teachers.
It's the 1st of February and the first day of strike action. Classrooms are closed and teachers are congregating in city centres across the country. Mary has joined the London rally.
We've asked for an above-inflation pay settlement. That's more than 10%. Is there a number between 5 and 10 where this can be settled?
Well, there might be, but I'm not negotiating it with you now. A demonstration of this size, I hope, will show the Secretary of State and the government they're not going to win this by ignoring us.
The issues raised in this dispute run deep for Mary. Teaching is in her blood.
My father was the headmaster of the local primary school, and my mother was a teacher. I'm one of 8. 4 out of the 8 children trained as teachers, so it's a bit of a family industry. My house was much more of a political house than a union house. My father, the way of keeping 8 children in order would be to introduce political debate at the dinner table. I did a degree in English and sort of fell into teaching and realised after a year or so that it was exactly where I wanted to be, that there was something I could do. I mean, actually, one of my chief things I wanted to be as a little girl was a nun, because I liked the habit, you know, I thought it looked very dramatic, but that didn't work out. A job came up late 2002, General Secretary of the Association of Teachers and Lecturers. I thought, well, I'll give it a go. I was elected by the skin of my teeth. A union activist stood against me and said I knew nothing about unions, which was really quite true, but I did know about education.
We are the NEU! 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 We are the NEU!
Mary needs these protests to be big and brash. The more public the cause, the harder it is for politicians to ignore. Jill is Education Secretary Gillian Keegan. She would lead any potential talks on behalf of the government.
Do the teachers deserve a pay rise?
These strikes are a big concern for them. Another disruption to children's education after COVID.
They keep going on strike. We've got several more strikes planned if they don't get what they want. You're saying strike as much as you want, there's no more money.
Well, no, what I've said is it's really disappointing, really concerning. This strike is not a last resort. I'm not going to just go in and say, here you go, we will do inflation plus whatever. It would be economically incoherent to do that. We can't do that, and we've made that very clear.
I say to Gillian Keegan, look, love, rather than going around the television studios as you did this morning saying there's no more money, stop the anti-teacher rhetoric, stop the anti-union rhetoric, stop the tricks, get into a room, sit down and negotiate.
Are you losing control of this crisis, Mr. Barclay? Why are you criticising the unions, Mr. Barclay?
Well, because we need to focus on patient safety, and that's what we're working on. I've got nothing to say, Joe.
Is the government's position changing?
Not at this present time.
The head of the Royal College of Nursing has issued a direct appeal to the Prime Minister to intervene in their pay dispute, saying the government could still prevent strikes.
With no offer on the table, thousands of nurses and ambulance workers will strike across most regions in England and Wales tomorrow.
The government says lives will be put at risk tomorrow when ambulance staff join nurses on picket lines on what will be the biggest ever day of NHS industrial action.
It's the 6th of February, and Health Secretary Steve Barclay is on a walk around of Kingston Hospital in London. It's his job to manage the NHS pay dispute for the government.
Careful.
Today, nurses and paramedics have walked out together, a move Barclay says is harmful to patients.
You talk about these strikes being harmful. I mean, have you modelled how harmful they are?
Well, we're seeing the impact in terms of the impact on appointments, the impact on inpatient procedures, and 80,000 or so appointments cancelled, around 11,000 inpatient operations in terms of the strikes to date. So there is an impact on patients.
Every day we will see Steve Barclay with his sleeves rolled up and doing another photo shoot in another hospital. Nurses see through that. That's the first thing I want to say to him. All of that tokenism is not lost on our nursing staff. You can come in for 5 minutes, you can get your photograph and walk away, but who's left behind to look after those patients for the next 14 hours are nurses.
Today, many nurses aren't there to look after patients. Instead, they're out on picket lines, which means Pat is too.
They're just incredible people. Look, we all seen that during the pandemic, what they did. You know, it's an absolute honour to lead this profession, an absolute honour. But what I don't want to do is let them down now.
What do we want? Fair pay! When do we want it? Now!
I have been in nursing about 27 years. Growing up as a child, I just felt that they looked like heroes. And I wanted to be a hero. I didn't have a cape, but I thought perhaps my hat might be my own cape. COVID came. Everybody was anxious and scared, and at home we had to brave the outdoors. We had to travel to work. We had to go and face the real risks. And so the government also recognized that. They all stood in Downing Street, and every Thursday they would clap for nurses. It was good to feel acknowledged. Then COVID finished. We lost many nurses during that process. This cost of living crisis has almost, knocked me off my feet. I can't afford to maintain just a simple lifestyle. I feel as though we shouldn't have reached this point. I've been stretched to the point where there's nothing else to give. Somebody has to listen now. And that's why I made a personal decision to strike.
Brilliant, how are you? Hello, I'm Pat.
After 5 days of strike action, there's still no word from the government. The longer the strike goes on without a response, the wearier the nurses are getting.
We want to be able to deliver safe care at the bedside. That's all we want.
Is it really tough?
It's tough. It's really tough.
Where do you work?
Oncology, cancer.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just taken everyone so much to come out here today, to walk away. So we're not taking it lightly, and so we want you to, Well, you're representing us brilliantly. We want you to continue to do so.
Every picket line I go to join, I feel an absolute dread because I have nothing to offer them. and I want to be able to say to them, we've got something. To see those nurses standing on picket lines, that I genuinely felt that you'd have to be almost inhumane not to have heard them as a politician.
Mary doesn't have any updates for her union members either. A national strike and 3 regional strikes have so far failed to provoke the government to open talks.
They talk all the time about how valuable teachers are and what the wonderful work that they do. The problem is those words don't resonate with teachers who see class sizes rising, school buildings crumbling, their colleagues leaving the profession in droves.
At Passmore's Academy in Essex, 48 of the 75 teaching staff took industrial action. History teacher Lee Pickering was one of them.
Come off, please, lads. Right, it's a task on the board. It's just true or false. Just do it in the back of your books.
I honestly think we've got a crisis in education. We have some fabulous students in this school, and they come in every day and they do all the right things. And that's what I want for them. I want the best support and the best outcomes that we can. And it just feels as though in the 32 years I've been in the profession, you know, I came in as a teacher. That was mainly what I did. There was a little bit of pastoral care, of course, but now it feels like I'm expected to be almost a social worker, a child psychologist, almost a police officer, you know, somebody who got an understanding of social services. It feels like every time there's a problem in society, it's let schools deal with it.
Where there's dates, use the dates to help you. All right?
My reasons for going on strike are quite clear. It's not just about money. It's really about the students, and it's about the provision and what we can provide for them.
Yeah? Do you see what I mean? You're going to start getting frustrated, which is exactly what they did.
Are you willing to keep striking?
Sadly, yes. And I say sadly because I don't want to be out, you know, not educating the students, but when you feel as though somebody's not listening to you and you've got a proper grievance, I think you've got to keep pushing that message and trying to convince people that actually there is a problem and it needs to be addressed.
We reported in the last half an hour that Royal Mail workers have voted overwhelmingly in favour of more strike action. Well, now the Royal College of Nursing has also announced more industrial action.
For the first time, the RCN will involve nursing staff working in emergency departments, intensive care and cancer care units.
The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, has called this a significant escalation that will risk patient safety.
What I'm saying to the Prime Minister today is choose talking over strike action.
Things have just ratcheted up another few notches.
The Royal College of Nursing's threat of more serious strike action affecting A&E, intensive care and cancer treatment seems to have worked. The government have been in touch with Pat.
Interview with Pat Cullen, General Secretary, Royal College of Nursing. What has happened this afternoon?
Well, very pleased to say that the government has agreed to enter into a period of intensive talks with the Royal College of Nursing. I'm confident that we will come out with a fair pay settlement for our nursing staff.
Well, that was a fairly upbeat Pat Cullen, clearly optimistic about the outcome of those talks that are going to happen tomorrow, giving nothing away there, saying she wasn't going to negotiate in public.
Just get your laptop and you move back to your desk. Would you want to go to your desk now?
Yes, I better go to my desk.
Okay.
Pat has agreed to call off strikes to enter talks with the government. She's now got to tell her members the news on a video call.
Okay, so we're going live in a minute or so, Gary, is that right?
Yes, if we go live and...
Aware that not all members will want to stop striking during talks, Pat gets help preparing her words from close advisors.
And how did we get to this point? It's because of you and the decisions that you made, those difficult moments when you're hovering over the ballot paper, deciding what the right thing to do was. And tonight isn't about answering detailed questions about percentages or dates.
Is everyone ready if I go live now?
Okay, thank you.
We're going live now.
Good evening, members, and I'm just delighted to be joining you this evening. As you know, I would have been coming along tonight to talk to you about the next 48 hours planned action, but after months of telling this government that they need to talk to us, they've finally agreed to intensive talks. It's the pressure that you placed on this government that has brought them to that decision that they've made this evening, that the Prime Minister has intervened and said we need to start intensive talks with the Royal College of Nursing. But we will push every single possible button to make sure we get the best deal for you. Okay, thanks everybody, onwards and upwards, and let's move on now to the next step, and hopefully it'll be very, very soon. So thank you.
Hello everyone, it's okay to turn your cameras and mics on. Well done.
There's one comment, Pat. I think you should run for Prime Minister, says
really?
We'll get a pay rise then. Oh, we'd have to hold our feet to the fire then.
Do you know what, Patricia? The country would be totally bankrupt because every nurse would be a millionaire, as far as I'd be concerned.
It's mid-March and the second day of national action. Teachers from all over England and Wales are marching together in central London. Their protest coincides with the spring budget.
The government has made a serious offer to the National Education Union to pause the planned strike so we can talk about pay, conditions and reforms. I urge the NEU to pause their strike action and get around the table.
Mary is still in a standoff with the government. She won't call off the strikes before there's a solid commitment to open negotiations. As well as being the main bargaining chip, strikes get teachers together and help boost morale.
I always start at the front of the march. I always dance to that and then realise I've got a bad hip and then move back through the procession, the demonstration, and talk to members. I'm serious about the union, but I'm quite happy to take the piss out of myself. I think if you don't have a sense of the absurd about yourself, you're missing a trick.
Well, we've done some dancing, we've done some singing. Are we ready to do some marching?
Mary only has a few months left to try to win this fight. Her 5-year term leading the NEU is finishing, and she'll bow out of being a trade unionist after 2 decades.
When you're the General Secretary of a union, you give yourself to the membership. You're reflecting back their concerns, and so they feel that they know you, and in a very profound way, they do know us. It is an honour for us to represent them. So that's how I feel about the job. I feel it's an honour. I'm getting quite emotional now.
The thing about disputes is that governments say no, 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 until it becomes so politically unpopular that they have to start changing their mind. And this dispute has every chance of becoming very politically unpopular for them. And we will try and make it so in order to get a resolution.
After 3 weeks of talks, Pat and her government counterpart, Steve Barclay, are ready to reveal the details of a longer-awaited pay offer.
I have today tabled a formal offer on behalf of the government. It involves a 5% pay rise for next year, 2023-4, but also a lump sum payment. We've had meaningful, constructive discussions. I'm very pleased we've been able to reach an agreement which they will now recommend to their members.
Huh?
You seem nervous.
Yeah, I'm not so much nervous as, look, is it the best offer? No, it's not the best offer. There's always a part of me feels, could we have done more? But certainly after those 3 weeks, I know there was not going to be another single penny put on the table for our members.
The RCN entered talks before anyone else, but the government's pay offer will also apply to several other large unions representing NHS workers. They will all have a chance to vote on the deal.
This agreement rightly recognises the fantastic work that our NHS workers like nurses, midwives and paramedics do, whilst also being affordable for the taxpayer and allowing us to deliver on our promises to halve inflation and cut NHS waiting lists.
Would I have liked more money? 100%. But at the end of the day, it's now up to our members, our brilliant nurses, to make that decision.
The Budget Day teachers' strike seems to have made an impact, as 2 days later, the NEU, together with other teaching unions, finally entered talks with the government. After 6 days of negotiating,
We're not saying anything,
Sorry.
an offer is put on the table. Around 30,000 teachers have joined an emergency video call, anxious to hear what the offer is and whether it's any good.
I'm delivering difficult news. Members are calling and they will be hoping that there's a good offer from the government, and there isn't. I am the bearer of bad news, and I feel sorry that that is the case. I have to now just concentrate.
Good evening to all of you and welcome to the meeting. We're going to talk about the pay and funding offer that the government made. So the average pay rise is 4.5. They say that schools can already cover the 4%.
We know that negotiating a deal which we could recommend to you would involve compromise. But the government was not prepared to compromise. After 6 days of intensive talks and a strong desire on behalf of all unions to negotiate properly, the government made this its final offer.
We are going to ask you to reject this offer in the strongest possible way because it is simply not good enough.
Crucially, the government's offer isn't fully funded. They're only offering to pay a fraction of the salary increase. Schools will have to fund the rest from their current budget.
It's not as though we didn't make it clear to ministers that this offer would not get through. But we're member-led, so we're advising members it's not an acceptable offer, but it's, in the end, it's down to them. They make the decision.
Back at Passmore's Academy in Essex, head teacher Vic Goddard is digesting the government's pay offer.
The smack in the teeth and the spin of numbers, for me it's not about the pay rise. You know, people do need to get paid more. To say that we're going to give you 4.5% pay rise but only give you 0.5% of the funding, that cripples us. It cripples us. You know, last year they gave a pay rise after the budgets had been set, so we've had to find that. And over 2 years, I've had to find £1 million in savings over 2 years. I've done 2 lots of restructuring, so I've already lost staff twice. I haven't got less things to do so I can afford to get rid of those people. They've gone and those jobs have had to be reallocated. There's nothing to cut. So my kids have been deliberately, we've had to make the choice to disadvantage them. That gives me an ulcer. That makes me lose sleep at night. That's why I'm on anxiety pills, because I don't know how to solve the problem, and by default, I'm a problem solver. That's why you become a head teacher. And when the problem's insurmountable, yeah, you question everything. You question yourself, you question the job, you question, you know, am I the right person? And that's tough. If we don't stand up now, whatever government who come in can make life harder and harder,
then actually we're doing the world a service. We've got to stand up for that. They backed us into a corner. We can't do the job properly unless they invest more money. It's as simple as that.
It's early April, and teachers are gathering in Harrogate for the NEU annual conference. It will start with the result of their vote on the government's pay offer, which Kevin and Mary asked them to reject.
Colleagues, we're about ready to make a start. If I could ask you to find your seats, please. Just before we open conference, as you may be aware, we have a very important announcement and result to give you. So I'm going to read the results and hopefully you can respond appropriately. So, the number of members that voted, 195,564. The number of our members that rejected the government's pay offer is 191,319. That is an outstanding 98%.
Today we are putting Gillian Keegan, Secretary of State for Education, on notice.
We want you to make a new offer that is fully funded, which matches other rises, which begins to deal with the crisis in our schools, an offer that our members would be prepared to accept.
So Gillian, we are calling further strike action on the 27th of April and the 2nd of May. We aren't going away, our members aren't going away, and together we are going to win.
Mary, how you feeling?
I feel quite emotional, really. I mean, that's an amazing result, which just shows the strength of feeling.
After months of industrial disputes across the NHS, there could be an end in sight if health workers back a new pay deal being recommended by unions.
Nurses have had the last 3 weeks to decide whether to accept or reject the government's 5% pay offer.
Tens of thousands of NHS workers voted to strike for better pay. Now they must decide if the offer is good enough.
It's been a turbulent time for Pat and her union. Some members think she's sold out by recommending they accept what they see as an insultingly low offer.
The pay offer is an actual slap in the face. The members are definitely, perturbed by the level of the offer. We deserve more.
Angry members form a vote reject campaign. Some of the criticism is vicious, and Pat is the target.
Some of the personal attacks in the last few days I have found very, very difficult. And for me, not the debate that our profession deserves.
All eyes will be here in central London on the RCN headquarters to see whether their members have accepted or rejected the government's pay deal.
Sorry, we're a bit preoccupied just getting ready for this, so apologies. Hello everyone and welcome to our session this evening. I believe truly that we've made history again. You've turned out to vote in record numbers, and that is so essential. You said, reject this offer. It's not enough.
It was very close. 54% of RCM members voted to reject the pay offer, going against the recommendations of Pat and her senior team. A result that shows a divided union and puts the General Secretary in a precarious position. But she comes out fighting.
Some comments about I've been offered a damehood, and I can assure you I've been offered nothing, nor did I ask this government for anything. Whilst I may not have got everything right, I've never set out to undermine the profession, undermine you as members of this college.
Pat, can I just say thank you very much for that tonight. Congratulations, and it was nice to see your moxie back.
It hasn't been easy, and it has been difficult. I have been the face of this. I've stuck my neck out probably a little bit. You also know, Maggie, I did share the threat where there has been a threat made on my life, and we've had police involvement. It's always difficult when you receive the abuse that I've received as an individual, because I'm human at the end of the day. And I've worked with victims of domestic violence. It's almost like emotional abuse. And some of my patients would have said the more times you get hit, the less it hurts. And I have felt a little bit about that as well, that those attacks on me don't have the same impact on me now. It doesn't have the same impact because it has happened so much to me.
Despite the online backlash, Pat remains popular on the picket line. Today is the final day of strikes under the current RCN mandate. The fight for more than 5% can't happen until nurses agree to a new mandate of strike action.
You've given us a message loud and clear, very loud and clear. The offer wasn't good enough for many, many reasons. We have listened. We will reballot our members to take further industrial action, because this is not over until you are satisfied with the offer.
Do you regret recommending the 5%?
There's not a day goes by that I don't think about that. This government said time and time again to us that if it wasn't recommended and if it wasn't accepted, that the money would come off the table. And personally, having heard those stories on the picket lines, having walked with nurses to food banks, I didn't feel in my heart that I could gamble with that money.
So, doing it all over again, you'd probably recommend it again?
Doing it all over again, I wouldn't recommend it again. The members have said to the Royal College of Nursing and to me, it wasn't enough. It wasn't accepted. So no, I wouldn't accept it again.
In the teachers' dispute, the NEU are turning the screw ever tighter with strike day number 8. Mary has travelled to Durham to take part in her last ever rally.
Bonnie! Lawson!
You all right?
You all right?
Good to see you.
Good. Bonnie! Hello! You all right?
I am.
Good,
Yeah,
good,
okay.
good.
Please give a very warm welcome to our Joint General Secretary, Dr. Mary Bousted.
So this will be my last speech to you. I want you to know how proud I am of you. I am proud of the fight you are waging to secure decent work, decent pay, and a decent education system for children and young people that you care about so much. We are stronger than we've ever been. We are 500,000 members strong. The largest education union in Europe, the third largest union in the TUC. Together, individually and collectively, we are magnificent. Never forget that.
Mary only has a few weeks left in the union. It looks increasingly likely she'll have to leave without having managed to resolve the dispute.
We've got some more breaking news about nursing strikes. A ballot for nursing strikes by the Royal College of Nursing has failed to reach the legal threshold that it needs to have in order for those strikes to go ahead.
Only 43% of RCN members took part in the ballot. Unions need a turnout of at least 50% to secure a mandate for strikes.
No strike action is good news for the government. It'll certainly be a win as far as Rishi Sunak is concerned. The question is, will this be the end to the campaign of industrial action when it comes to nurses in England?
All year, the government has been fighting public sector pay battles on multiple fronts. Hundreds of thousands of patients have had treatment delayed because of the nurses' strikes. Some children have lost 8 days of school to teachers' strikes. Pressure has been mounting on the government to publish and honour the findings of the independent pay review bodies. And now the media have been called to an unexpected press conference.
Millions of public sector workers are expected to find out in the next hour whether they'll get a pay rise and of how much.
The bodies that suggest how much they should receive have already put forward their proposals to government.
It's been a very tricky political issue for the Prime Minister and continues to be.
Does he accept them, as some in his cabinet are urging him to do, in order to put an end to strikes, particularly in schools where they've been very disruptive?
Today we'll get a sense of how they want to proceed and whether we can get beyond the deadlock that we've seen over many months.
Good afternoon. I can confirm today that we are accepting the headline recommendations of the pay review bodies in full. I urge all union leaders to accept these pay offers and call off their strikes. There will be no more talks on pay. We will not negotiate again on this year's settlements, and no amount of strikes will change our decision. Thank you very much for your time.
Mary's teachers have been offered a 6.5% pay rise, with most of it funded by the government. Pat's nurses, despite rejecting the government's pay offer in April, will still get the 5%, but no more.
Disgusted, absolutely disgusted. For him to get up on a podium and say, that's the strike's over, well, I would suggest to him that that's not within his gift to say. I think he showed his true colours as to what he really thought of the nursing profession, picked them off and give them the lowest possible pay rise. People on the front line will not give up. They won't give up on the NHS, they won't give up on the profession, and they certainly won't give up on patients. Will I keep going? Yes, absolutely, because I truly, truly believe in nursing. I believe in those brilliant, decent people that have stood on picket lines, lost their pay through thick and thin in the height of the winter. Do they deserve better, and do they need someone to speak up for them? Yes, they do. And I'll do that to the day that I leave this post.
Teachers were given the chance to vote on whether to accept the Prime Minister's 6.5% offer. Mary and Kevin recommended that they do.
We're really sorry to interrupt your holiday, but we've got an important message.
We are reporting on the teacher and support staff accept, reject ballots about pay and funding, and the teachers reballot on strike action.
An overwhelming 6 out of 7 members voted to accept. So we will not be calling more strike action about the current round of pay and funding. We have been so proud of being General Secretaries of the National Education Union, and never prouder than this year, when you have really shown the power of the union.
And our last words, Mary and I wish you all a great holiday.
And the very best wishes for the future. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Great.
Got through it.
That
Yeah,
was good.
great.
That was all right.
We start with breaking news, and members of the UK's largest teaching union have voted to end their strike action after accepting a pay offer.
When was the last time a union changed what the government was going to do? Decades.
The UK's largest teaching union has voted to accept the government's recent pay offer. The NEU had advised its members to accept the deal, which also includes an extra £900 million in funding for schools every year.
It was the teacher and head teacher unions who had to sign a statement with the Prime Minister, not the other public sector bodies. It all rested on the teacher deal. There is a lot of satisfaction in knowing that we got a decent deal this year for our members, but we also got other public sector workers their deals as well.
We've got a statement from Gillian Keegan, who said the decision to accept the 6.5% pay rise offered by the government is good news for teachers, good news for parents, and most of all, good news for children.
I think that every so often, they don't come very often, but you get a moment. And I think this year and these 8 months have been a moment. The trade union movement is littered with a history of honourable defeats. This is an honourable win. It's the biggest award for teachers in over 30 years. And we achieved it. And I think that's something.